Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to introduce Mr. Scott Vanderwall today, who will be testifying. He's from the great and wonderful and beautiful state of South Dakota, so we're thrilled that he's here. Scott is a third-generation family farmer in the state of South Dakota who lives just down the road from me. It's actually about 30 miles away, but in South Dakota, that's still neighbors. For us, Scott has been a real leader on a lot of issues. He's the president of the South Dakota Farm Bureau. He's vice president of the American Farm Bureau Federation. And he also works with his dad, his uncle, and his son in his family operation. Mr. Chairman, we all eat and we pay taxes and in one form or another. And as we dig further into the problems that the tax code presents for all of us and that tax code that we live under, Scott is here to give us a perspective of someone who grows what we all eat. And so thank you for joining us today, Scott, and I really look forward to your testimony. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Noem.
Chairman Roscom, Ranking Member Doggett, and members of the subcommittee, thank you so much for holding this hearing about tax reform and small business this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about the importance of tax reform in our farm and ranch business. My name is Scott Vanderwall, and I, along with my father, my uncle, and son, operate Vanderwall Farms in Volga, South Dakota. We farm 1,300 acres of corn and soybeans. We operate a beef cattle feedlot where cattle are prepared for market and harvest crops for neighboring farmers. While Representative Noem mentioned that I'm the third generation in our farm, I'd like you to know that my son is the fourth, and he and his wife had a baby girl back in November who we certainly hope has a chance to farm if she chooses when she grows up. So that's certainly an important thing to us. Before I discuss tax reform, I'd like to emphasize the importance of agriculture to our nation's economy and talk about our business environment. Collectively, agriculture, food, and related industries contributed $992 billion to U.S. domestic gross product in 2015. Agriculture and its related industries provide about 11% of U.S. employment. The vast majority of farms are family-owned and share several things, including that they operate in a world of uncertainty, from unpredictable commodity and product markets to fluctuating input prices, from uncontrollable weather to insect or disease outbreaks, running a farm or ranch business is challenging under the best of circumstances. Farmers and ranchers operate under tight profit margins, often for rates of return that are modest compared to other businesses. Our businesses are also cyclical, where a period of prosperity can be followed by one or more unprofitable years. We are now in a serious economic downturn, with net farm income falling by nearly half since 2011. Farmers and ranchers need permanent tax reform that recognizes the financial challenges we face. We need tax policies that support high risk, high input, capital intensive businesses. We need a tax code that allows us to match income with expenses and helps us to even out high and low income years. Reducing effective tax rates is the most important thing that tax reform can do to boost farm and ranch businesses. Every dollar that we pay in taxes is a dollar that could be reinvested back into our farm. Any investment we make will not only be good for our farm business, but will lift our communities and contribute to a robust ag economy. While lower tax rates are important, the critical measure of any tax reform plan for farmers and ranchers will be the effective tax rates that we pay. Because profit margins in farming or ranching are tight right now, we are more likely to fall into lower tax brackets. But tax reform plans that fail to factor in the impact of lost deductions, credits, and exemptions for all rate brackets could result in a tax increase for agriculture and for businesses in general. Because farms, including ours, have high production input costs, it's especially helpful to be able to immediately write off the cost of equipment and production supplies. With the price of a large combine and a couple of headers topping well over $500,000, it's easy to appreciate how expensing helps our farm business to cash flow. Immediate expensing frees up cash so that we can upgrade equipment, replace livestock, buy production supplies for next season, and expand our businesses, or, probably most importantly, hire farm workers and provide employment. Debt service is an ongoing and significant cost of doing business for the vast majority of farmers and ranchers who, like my family, depend on borrowing to buy property, equipment, and production inputs. If my family can't deduct interest, it'll make it more expensive for our farm to borrow or could restrict the amount we can borrow. During the difficult economic times we now face, the ability to borrow money is more critical than ever. I also worry about beginning farmers like my son, who rely more heavily on debt financing than we do. I know from talking to other farmers and ranchers across the country just how worried they are that their businesses will die with them because of estate taxes. For farms and ranches like ours that are currently under the estate tax exemption, the repeal of stepped-up basis would create new and substantial capital gains taxes. While lower capital gains rates encourage investment, the tax can still discourage property transfers. As my family plans for transfer of our farm from one generation to the next, we're struggling with the impact that capital gains taxes are having on the transfer of that business property. Lastly, I'd like to mention that cash accounting gives farmers the ability we need to plan for major business investments, and in many cases provides guaranteed availability of some ag inputs. Also, like-kind exchanges, or 1031s, help farmers and ranchers buy land and upgrade business assets. I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity to visit with you today about the importance of tax reform and how it will help America's small businesses, including farms and ranches, to grow and create jobs. And I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.